So, welcome back to another episode of Access Granted. I'm absolutely delighted to have 4 members of Team Bizpedia around the table today. So, the agenda is we are going to start with introductions. After that, each of these 4 inspiring individuals have all brought a question with them. So, we're going to just shoot the breeze. Everyone's brought their question and we'll see what comes out at the end of it. So, let's start to my left. Chris, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Nash. I'm the owner of Fancy and we design and manufacture fine jewellery.
Kaz.
Hi, I'm Kaz. I'm a chartered financial planner working at Jigsaw Financial Corporate.
Hi, I'm Gemma Murphy. I'm a co-founder of View HR, Employment Law and HR Consultancy.
I'm Giles Cleverley. I founded Sinstar, an IT and telecoms company, in 2002, and I also own, buy, build and invest in other companies.
Nice. Well, ladies and gents, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I know this isn't the usual setup for a Tuesday, but there's worse places to be. So, look, first of all, thanks for being here. So let's start with ladies first. Kaz, what's on your mind? What sort of questions do you want to ask the team?
Okay, so my question is, so how do you continue to be creative and grow within your industry and business? So for like next generation and just the way things are changing so quickly at the moment within, the economy and the businesses.
That's a good question. Giles, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so how do I do it? I mean, a big advantage for me, because I'm buying other businesses and really sort of getting involved in other companies, I can actually steal and merge a lot of different things. So, for example, with the IT side of things, that obviously they're pretty up to date on technology and how software bolts together and things like that. Whereas other industries, I don't know, for example, I had tyre shops and garages and things, they were a little bit more behind. So then we come along with the technology influence and yeah, it was amazing. But it's all to do with then, leveraging that side of things. So
for you, is it staying on top of the tech revolution, as it were, to integrate that into your business? Do you think that's one of the best ways to stay creative?
Yeah, I mean, that also I love the concept of standing on the shoulder of giants, because you look at who's biggest in your industry, how are they doing it? Because generally the bigger companies aren't necessarily the most agile, but they should have the budget to be stretching. So you can really look at what they're doing, how they're doing it. I mean, I love mystery shopping, so you'd get someone, or yourself can always pretend to be a prospective client, so then you can actually, work out what their sales funnel is, how do you, get taken around their process. But I would say break the business down into different areas and then look at what you want to change. But I'm also a really big one for having away days. So you literally just take yourself out of the business for at least 2 days. Got to be away from the business so that it's completely fresh eyeballs. First day is all about, right, where's the business at? What part do I enjoy? What are we good at? All of those sorts of things. And then the second day is like, right, where can we push this business to? Why is it done in that way? And then just keep asking why. Because a lot of the time, business is done in the way that it's always done because of a few players in the industry, and then everyone kind of follows. Whereas you look at it on a completely different way. So for example, I'm working with a builder at the moment that spends loads of time going and quoting. Dead time, waste of time. Whereas actually we've now put it into how estate agents quote, which is effectively, right, call them on WhatsApp, flip it into a video call, right, let's walk around, let's do it. He's now getting quotes back within the hour. Yes, we're changing how it is, and saying, right, actually there's these variables and that variable, but he's gone from spending 3 days quoting. So 3 days in a 5 or 6 day week, he was quoting. Now he's quoting in 3 hours, and he's actually winning more work. Nice. So
going back to the way it is, how often are you doing those?
Oh, minimum once a year.
Right, okay, 2 days once a year.
Yeah, I mean, ideally you'll do that. That's your big blue sky stuff. But it then dovetails in with every quarter, at least 1 whole day.
Is that with the team, or is that?
With the management team. But then it then filters back down. So you do your quarterly, but then we'll do monthly team training. So every month, again, outside of work, you know, you just buy a load of pizzas and beers and whatnot and just get the whole team together. I love exercises like start, stop, continue. So, you know, what should we stop doing? What should we start doing? And what should we continue doing? Because the start is that's really, you know, especially if you've got any of the team that are kind of onboarding clients, you get their feedback. What did you like about your previous, you know, X, Y, and Z? What would you like them to be? Stuff like that. So
Nice. Thanks, Giles. Chris, what are you thinking?
Well, I think I've got a bit of an advantage in that my whole industry is creative. So that's what we do. And I've got a team of people who are much more creative than I am, thankfully. You know, we
Don't believe that for a second.
So we, you know, design jewellery, we manufacture jewellery, and then to be able to do that, you need to have that creative flair. But I think one of the things that enables us to maintain our creativity, or even potentially even say be ahead of the curve, is that we control the whole process. So everything from design through to manufacture is in our control. So it means that we can be very nimble. We can move with whatever the trends currently are. And more importantly, we can make sure that the customer receives exactly what they want because we do design it and then we manufacture it. So for me, the thing that enables us to maintain our creativity is not being reliant upon third parties, but actually being the designer and manufacturer.
Nice. Just sticking with it, I'm not buying the fact that you're not creative, by the way. So I'm just going to push you on that. In terms of your creativity, what do you draw on to inspire you?
For me personally, it's actually, I take my inspiration from what the customer wants to achieve. So our manufacturing is predominantly bespoke and made to order. And therefore my inspiration is what does the customer want to achieve? And then we work backwards from that. So we're not so much a collection-led jeweler. We don't go out and create a collection and then hope to sell it. We actually draw upon what the customer wants to achieve and then on what they like, and then we work backwards from there.
Nice. Well, it just sounds like you're a great listener.
Well, yes. Yeah, that's one way of putting it.
All right, nice one. Cheers, Chris. Gemma?
I suppose for me, it's about playing to your strengths. So understanding what it is you enjoy, what it is your team enjoy, and really about hiring brilliant people and giving them the opportunity and the freedom to be brilliant at what they do. I think we have to recognise that on the journey of running a business, you change as individuals, your business changes. You need to really reflect on what the market's doing, listen to what your customers want. One of the things which we found has worked for us is being agile in our business. So allowing us to try new things. They don't always work. Sometimes you think something's a really great idea, you run with it, you put lots of effort into it, lots of time, money, etc. But actually having the confidence to back out of something is as powerful as actually stepping forward and trying to create something new. So, you know, not everything you do is always going to land. I think
Have you learned that over the years?
Yeah.
Like to be like, actually, it's okay to make mistakes and just keep moving
I think during COVID, we were looking at how we were going to grow VUHR. One of the ways we were looking was going down a franchise route. Actually, on reflection, yes, it was a great idea, and it can work, but the measures we needed to put in place at that time to support that, and what we actually realised our clients really benefit from our type of business wasn't necessarily aligned. And there were more profitable routes to go down, which would allow us to keep true to our principles, our determination to offer the best service to our clients, and to also grow and develop different areas to offer our clients. So, you know, we've grown very much into employment law more, as well as our training, mediation and other things alongside our general HR consultancy.
Nice. Thanks, Gemma. Useful?
Yes.
Yeah. I think the only thing I'd add, because I'm going for a similar thing personally at the moment, trying to think how can I grow and still maintain creativity. And the one thing that I've worked on that's really helping me is creating, I'm trying to do it on a Friday, right? So I have like personal development Friday. And to get my creative juices flowing, I really benefit from like podcasts, listening to podcasts, learning, just even like the big ideas, right? Like blue sky thinking sort of thing. Yeah. So I've really struggled with that recently, but I think having that framework for me, which is like 1 day a week, going back to Giles' away days, just out of curiosity, on away days, I guess you two, Chris and Gemma, are you doing any of that sort of stuff? Like giving yourself some freedom to think about the business, like work on the business?
We do have time. We don't have as much time as Giles suggests, but I think that's part of the place where we're at with the growth side, but we do know we need to get more into it. But in terms of what you're saying about the creativity, I know if I don't have that personal downtime on a Saturday morning, away from work, completely
is this your hot
free
tub
of it.
routine?
This is my hot tub routine.
Talk us through the hot tub routine, come on.
Saturday morning is lion, hot tub, coffee in the hot tub, walk the dog with the kids and have family time.
Nice, there you go.
That's really nice.
You got to go and buy a hot tub now.
Yeah, I do.
Right.
Absolutely.
But Chris, on the away days, you doing any particular routine like that?
No specific routine, but I do a couple of times a year take myself and my key management out of the business for a day, where actually you achieve so much more by not being in the business, just to have that discussion. But the key to it is to make sure you've got an agenda, make sure you know what you're going to discuss and stick to that agenda, because it's very easy to go and have an away day and it turn into a party. So
All for a party.
Oh,
Is there anything wrong with that? But yeah, no,
It's a tax-efficient party, you can't go wrong with that.
agreed. All right, thanks guys, we appreciate that. Right, Giles, coming to you. What's your
My question, yes. So my question is, what has been your biggest obstacle in business and how did you overcome it?
Any volunteers to kick us off?
I'll go.
Go on then, thanks Chris.
Okay, for me, it was COVID. It was the immediate stop of business. So everything was fine. All of a sudden, there's this news report that there's this nasty cold going around, and then within a couple of months, everybody's told to stop trading, but you could remain open if you're a manufacturer, which we are. So I had to close the retail side of things. It was peak season for us in terms of wedding ring sales, so it's great for our cash flow at that time of year, except for when you're told to stop trading. And the biggest obstacle for me was when the supply chain started to collapse, when all of a sudden everybody you relied upon for your materials to be able to manufacture were themselves closing. And that I would say was probably the biggest challenge, certainly a really stressful time because there was just no warning. It's the time of year when I put a lot of money into stock, into diamonds, to hold in ready for manufacture, and then all of a sudden you can't manufacture. You still got to pay for the diamonds. So that for me, I would say is probably the biggest challenge I've experienced. How did I overcome it? You just adapt. I found that the smaller suppliers, the people who are reliant upon their business to pay their mortgage, were opening up quicker than the big companies. So it was ringing around lots of people, have you got X, have you got Y? And very much relying upon the smaller companies, suppliers for bits and pieces that I needed. Being lean, I had to use the furlough scheme. You know, we couldn't manufacture, so taking advantage of the furlough scheme was a great help to me. Addressing how we do things. We couldn't allow customers to come into the shop, but we could be on Zoom. So we ended up doing consultations over Zoom. We weren't allowed to allow customers into the shop, but they were allowed to park on our forecourt and hand us stuff. So we became a bit of a drive-through jeweler for the time period. So, and delivering the items to customers. So it was a case of making the most of the situation within the rules, maybe pushing them a little bit, but to try and make sure you could just keep the wheels turning. And then as things started to open up again, you managed to then get back on track. And interestingly, you know, I've now formed relationships with suppliers that I wouldn't have otherwise looked at, but I accept that they helped me out during a difficult time, and so why would I then move my business back to the big suppliers?
Do you feel like you're stronger now, the other side of the pandemic, because of the experiences you learned during that time?
Yes, primarily because it was an enforced break. It made you stop, look at the business and go, actually, what can I do better? What are we doing because it's a habit, and what can we do to bring in business during this difficult time? And some of those things that we were doing to bring in business during the difficult time has now become a habit because actually it worked during that time. And some of the things which we were doing just because that's what we've done for the last 10 years, we don't do anymore, because actually we were given an opportunity. We were forced to sit back and go, why do we do that? We do that because that's how we've always done it, but it's not necessarily the way we should be doing it, but we've never had the time to stop, look at it, address it, and ask ourselves, is it right, is it wrong? Whereas when the government say, well, you're going to stay at home for a few months, whether you like it or not, you get that opportunity to actually address everything within the business and say, right, this is what we're going to continue doing, and this is what we're going to stop doing.
So we had the total opposite situation. I mean, as an HR consultancy, we were working 5 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night for a good period. It was an obstacle for us in many ways because we went through huge growth whilst also doing a huge amount of free work, for want of a word, for customers to support them at a time of critical need, because many were thinking they were going to lose employees and things like that. So we had the massive obstacle of COVID in a way, in that it was such a boom that we were under a huge amount of pressure as a team, and we didn't know what was around the corner, like all businesses. So whilst we were needing to grow to keep up with everything we were doing, we weren't sure if it was going to be just a bubble and things would settle down, or if in fact it was going to be a consistent level. So at a time of huge pressure on the whole world, we were tired, exhausted. We were having to take on new members of the team, integrate them into a world which was totally unfamiliar to everyone, all on Zoom. We were trying to keep our relationships with our clients in the most positive light we could, and give them support. I mean, there were a huge amount of directors who were falling apart, to be quite frank. So that was a really hard time for us, not just in terms of gearing up as a business and dealing with the emotional side as well as all the lockdown side, but also we were trying to look at our foundations. And I think one of the key things we learnt about overcoming the obstacles to business, and the obstacle being growth for us, was that actually, you know, using the property analogy, is, you know, we don't build houses without foundations anymore. And there's a really good reason for that, because over time they will fall down because the ground's unpredictable. But the thing about the business is that actually the foundations you put down for when you start a business are very different to, you know, 2 years in, 5 years in, 8 years in, 10 years. And actually it's about constantly reevaluating what foundations your business needs at that point, but also trying to plan for the future and how you're going to evolve into that growing business. So I think, you know, in your point about taking stock, we've in a way as a business had to get over the exhaustion of what COVID brought to us, and actually reassure each other that it's been okay to just sit back. Actually, we've never sat back, that's a lie. But, you know, take a step back, consolidate on what we'd put in place. And we have fortunately grown as well through that. But that point of reflection and consolidation, I can't underestimate how important that is for looking at where you are now as well as looking at the future. But also, you know, with with growth or the stress and strains of, work falling off a cliff, for instance, I think you have to appreciate that we are all humans, and a lot of what we need to do as business owners is to understand the impact that these things have not only on ourselves, our business, but also our people. And if you can overcome that, it's...
Right, guys, so I really appreciate you talking there about COVID. I just want to quickly just go around the table and ask you how you as an individual dealt with the whole process and what you learned from it. Obviously, Chris, we spoke about the business, but how did you deal with that experience? What did you learn from it being Chris Nash?
Well, I've got a newfound respect for teachers. I've learned that I would never want to be a teacher. The homeschooling experience was something that I would not want to go through again. But you can see, I don't know.
Did you feel like the stress of the situation? How did you feel like you dealt with the stress of the situation being a business owner?
You just did. There was no alternative. There was no option to not deal with the stress of it. You had a team of people who have mortgages and to pay and kids to feed, and so the option of walking away from the stress wasn't there. You just got on with it and did what you needed to do.
Do you think that's always been your attitude? Because I'm sure some people did walk away from it and the stress. Have you always been like a can-do attitude type of guy?
Well, I guess so. It was more about, it wasn't even a sort of can-do attitude. It was about, I've got a responsibility to a group of people who are reliant upon me to pay the bills. So it wasn't even a can-do. It was a case of, you must. You have to do it. You can't give these people a job and tell them that, hey, look, I'm going to pay your salary and you're safe with me. And then actually the first hurdle, albeit a massive hurdle, you walk away and go, actually, you're on your own. It's just not an option.
Giles, did you learn anything about yourself in the pandemic?
Well, I mean, I was lucky in that, I've got a really good team at Sinstar, this was, and similar to you, Gemma, in terms of our workload suddenly just went insane. Hundreds of clients literally saying, right, all of our teams now need to work from home, and it's like, what the, but annoyingly, we basically just knuckled down and got it done. And we didn't profit from it at all. We didn't charge one client any extra at all to do all of the COVID stuff. So, and again, then when we then coming out of lockdown, we then have a load more work to put it all back and stuff like that. So, but no, luckily, really, really great team, really, really strong, steady general manager that I've got, and some of the other managers, and a lot of really good, solid core players in the team. So everyone really worked well. What I learned from myself is, so I'm more, say, creative. I'm not a detail-orientated person, but I actually felt that through COVID, having discipline and goals and actually having as much structure in my day really got me through. And I think I was probably fitter, healthier, learnt more, got more done through COVID than any time, because there was that super focus. I knew exactly what I wanted to get done, and I just basically just made sure that my days were filled with, it was like, right, PT session, obviously remotely. It was then, X, Y, and Z. So yeah, just really getting loads done. And I actually thought COVID was really good for me. I've now gone back. Well, the problem is the pubs open, don't they? And then of course all this healthy eating and all this sort of stuff goes out of the window. But no, it was a really difficult time. But at the same point, I think I genuinely feel that I got the most out of it.
Right. Kaz?
I'm a bit like yourself. It just went manic, absolutely manic. So obviously with mortgages, wealth, all that kind of stuff, looking after people's money, we weren't only just getting people talking about things like that, you were then getting their home problems as well. So we're almost kind of counselling in a way, taking on their problems. And so actually, in the same light as yourself, it was like you were doing multiple jobs and allowing, because it's fine, that's what we're here for, but we were taking on other people's problems as well, personal problems rather than business or kind of wealth problems. So I kind of just learned how strong I was in a way. It sounds really kind of up my own arse, I know, sorry. But,
How resilient you are.
Yeah. So you just kind of like...
That's technical terms.
Technical.
If you're listening from America, that's a technical term. It's a very British saying, and it means to have a cup of tea with sugar.
2 teeth.
But yeah, you just, a bit like yourself, you just kind of got on with it and you just coped.
And drank wine.
And yeah, drank a lot of wine.
Oh, I found how to really load up a bottle bin.
Well, I was listening to Giles saying I got into my PT. I started thinking I got into my wine.
Honestly, hot tub and wine, that is good.
It's a good de-stressor. Any particular wine you'd put a recommendation out for?
Well, I do like a nice English fizzy rosé.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like
right.
Exton Vineyard.
I've heard excellent.
I hear it's very good too.
Fair enough. Right, Kaz, coming to your obstacles, what's the biggest obstacle you faced in your career?
So probably changing from somebody who's always been, and this is going back a few years now, but being employed and having that employed head on to thinking, I want to run this business, I want to go for it, and switching my whole mindset from just doing my job to running the job, if that makes sense. And that whole change was a massive learning curve. And it put, wow, I've got such respect for business owners now on, you just see what they do as a business, but you don't actually see what's behind the scenes when you're not in it. And the way I kind of overcame all the kind of changes was surrounding myself with people who are in the same boat. Like now, networking, like it was just the best thing to do is surround myself with people who are going through the same things. You can chat to them, you just pick up such good tips, and you can just discuss what's going on in your business and life. And even though it could be complete separate business, you have such similarities. So that was probably the biggest mindset change for me. And I love it now. It's just second nature. But that change was quite drastic because I literally just went from one job and just swapped.
How soon did you realise you had to surround yourself with like-minded people, other business owners?
Yeah, so pretty quickly, to be honest with you, when you start talking to family and friends who are not in this world at all, sometimes they would help. Advice is great, however, they're not in it, so sometimes it wouldn't be the most beneficial advice as such. So to surround yourself with people within months, and it changed very quickly. So yeah.
How have you seen your mindset shift then, now being a business owner?
Yeah, so I think outside the box more, rather than just doing when you're just doing your job. You know what you're doing. You're your own guru at your business. So to just a bit like when we were talking about how I was talking about change, and I wanted to know how people change with a business and personally that side of things, because it's ever changing. And if you're not surrounding yourself with people who are going through those changes as well, yeah, so it's a huge mindset changes, but I enjoy it. Yeah.
Thanks, Giles, for the question. Yeah. Right, I'm going to jump in now with my question, okay? I'm throwing this one. You don't even know what it is. Right, okay. So, question is, you get to switch your life for a fictional character, okay? Who do you pick and why? Okay. So just digest that. You're going to switch your life for a fictional character. Who do you pick and why? Anyone know straight away? Go on then, Kaz, kick me off.
Harry Potter.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to be a wizard. It'd be great.
Yeah, fair. You've always been a Harry Potter fan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. But wouldn't it be good?
You've been to like Harry Potter World, that sort of
Do
thing?
you know what? Only once. That's really sad actually saying that. But yeah, only once. But I love it. I just can imagine just being able to cast spells and be lazy. Glass of wine over here. Great.
Nice one. Chris, you had your hand up. You feel like you've already
James
got your-
Bond.
Nice. I can see that in you, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think the reasons are obvious.
Nice one. Okay. To my right.
Gemma.
Go ahead.
I have to admit this is not something I've ever thought about. However, I did jokingly say the other day to friends of mine when I was cursing the balancing being mum, business owner, solicitor, and all of the other things which life throws at you. I said that I wanted, if I came back again as a film person, it would be the mum in Mary Poppins, who is a raving suffragette. And actually, I would actually come back as her, because I have now come to terms with the fact that being a feminist is okay, it's not a bad word, and actually, there's nothing wrong with wanting equality.
Okay. Has Mary Poppins' mum got a name?
It's not Mary Poppins' mum. You need to watch it.
Okay.
I can't remember. Mrs. Banks.
Mrs. Banks.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's who I'd
So we've
come
got
back as.
James Bond, Harry Potter, Mrs. Banks. Giles, what are you going for?
No, I mean, I was going to go James Bond. You've stolen it.
But there's different
Next time, I'm not going to be as polite and let you go first. So, I'll tell you what. So, I always struggle with being like really driven and focused and all that sort of stuff, because I just want to enjoy life and all that. So I actually think just for a day, being a complete arsehole like Gordon Gekko, you know, out of Wall Street, would be, you know, just to, if you, because you've got to go in the character of what you don't want almost, because it'll be fun for a day, wouldn't it? You know, so I think something like that would be, probably.
Nice.
You
I
know,
enjoyed that.
you'd
Very
learn the
eclectic
most.
mix. I think what comes to mind, similar to Giles, is Bobby Axelrod and Billions. You seen that?
All right,
it's one of my favourite TV programmes.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'll
Or
probably go for
what's
Bobby
the dad? What's the other one? It's another Sky series. It's the dad, and then you've got the couple of sons.
Succession.
Succession. He's an arsehole, isn't he? He'd be great. Wouldn't he? The dad.
That would be good.
Just for a day. You know.
Be an arsehole for the day.
Hold on.
That's what we're looking
Hold
for.
on. So, if you were to come back as a female character, who would you come back as?
That's a good question. It's not something that's
Showing
crossed
your
my
age,
mind.
Chris. Pamela Anderson or something.
You remind me.
Just for a day.
Just for a day. I did say
isn't it?
originally it's for a year. But okay.
was it?
Right,
Oh,
look,
sorry.
okay.
I'm a day.
Let's do it for a day. We'll answer Gemma's question. This is an open forum. That's what she wants to answer. Chris, as a female, who would you come back with? Come back as for the day.
Yeah, not come back with.
Yeah, come with. I'll tell you, I'll go first.
You go first.
Margaret Thatcher.
No, I thought it was going to be fictional.
That's true.
fine.
Yeah,
That was
I'm
good.
going with Margaret Thatcher.
Why?
Because I wasn't necessarily around when she was leading the country, but the way that people speak about her, she was clearly a strong woman that knew her own mind, and I think that'd be very interesting to live that life. Because also I get the impression that a lot of people didn't necessarily agree with her policies, but I think that's probably the thing that I see a lack of in leadership at the moment, is I don't respect some of the leaders because they don't actually have the courage to follow their own conviction. So I think I'd like to be her for a day, just to know, you know, there's a lot of resilience there. Yeah.
Minnie Mouse.
Okay. Any particular reason? Just bringing smiles to children.
What's not to like?
That's true.
Kaz?
Oh God, as a female.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just gonna say Hermione because.
Perfect answer. I like that.
God, I'm not sure actually, because old Thatcher, she's a classic, isn't she? Really.
Yeah.
Oh God, come back to me.
Okay.
Come back to you. It's a difficult question, right?
It is actually, isn't it? Because I don't want to come across as, you know, my previous.
James Bond over it. James Bond and Minnie Mouse. I like it. Your alter egos. Okay. Thanks, Gemma, for the question. Thanks for the question.
appropriate.
I will come to you.
You threw us. We'll throw you.
I know. I got us with this track of us impersonating people. Okay. Cool. Chris, come to you. What's your question?
My question is, so what are the do's and don'ts when it comes to seeking an investor to raise capital? So when a business reaches a certain size where you think, okay, we could springboard this business with a bit of an injection, what's the best way of approaching investors? What should you do? What shouldn't you do? Should you do it at all?
Oh, it's a good question. Gemma, what are your thoughts?
I'm not speechless, honestly, but no, I think you've got to ask yourself what it is you want and why you're looking at an investor and the type of investor you want. So it's something which we were approached about being invested in. It's actually something which we turned down.
Why'd you turn it down?
One of the reasons we turned it down was that actually we looked at why we do what we do. We looked at who we are as directors. We looked at where our business is going with the energy which we've got there. We've been very, very sensible with our cash flow. So we've got ourselves into a good position whereby actually perhaps we just need to back ourselves more with that internal investment. And also it was important, as we're a board of 3 directors, that we were all bought into investment and we shared that journey going forward. At that point, it wasn't something we could all agree on, and we have huge respect for each other. So we also really looked at what it was that drove us to be business owners, and the type of investor who was looking at us, and they would have been amazing to work with, I have no doubt. We weren't looking for someone to be in our business running it with us. So that was, for me, it was very much about understanding what type of investor it is you want. Do you want someone who's going to come in and simply, put the money on the table and leave you to do your thing, but you're reportable to them for what you do with those funds? Are you looking for an investor who's going to put the money in but also be an active participant in your business? Or actually, are you looking for an investor to come in and take more of the reins of what you're doing? And for us, those things, there wasn't a yes to all of those, so we made a decision not to go ahead at that point and look at different things, either buying, merging, or just carry on with our organic growth and backing ourselves.
So is that something that you have ruled out permanently, or is it something, as the business evolves, you would potentially review and take a potentially new view on?
No, I never rule anything out. And I think that's the point of being agile. Your business, by being agile, you can relook at these things and go back to those options. Also, we're all on a personal journey, and what we want at different times of those personal journeys will change. That's not to say that in 5-10 years' time or more, the directors might want a different type of involvement in the business, and therefore that may change with the prospect of investment as well. I think we just realised that actually for the course of the next, say, 2 to 3 years, that investment was not something we wanted to go into. But certainly, I never think you should close the door to anything. I think you need to be open-minded to different opportunities at different times. And working out what's right, not just for your business, but for you. We spend a lot of time in our businesses, working on our businesses. We'd all be lying if we said that they weren't a small part of us. My husband refers to it as my other child. Yeah. So, I think you've got to be really comfortable with the decision. That was what our position.
Thanks. Kaz?
Yeah, I like that. I've actually got a little flip question. Sorry, Chris.
It's all right.
Put you on the spot.
Is it at me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
As it's your question,
Right.
Is this something that you're looking into?
Something I'm considering. But again, it comes down to, is it right for me? Is it right for the business? What are the costs? What are the pros and cons, basically?
Yeah.
So it's not something, I don't think it's something you can rush into.
Yeah.
But it's something I think it's well worth exploring, because you may actually find that you're not just getting an investment in the business, but you're buying an additional set of skills or contacts or opening doors that you'd have otherwise never opened. So
I totally agree. I mean, one of the things which it's really made us think about and probably realign with our foundations and everything we're doing with the business is looking at the directors, looking at the people we have in the business and playing to the strengths, so that we're able to to actually focus on those key things which investment may have brought us, but we're just going to do it in a different structure. So it's been a really good process and thought-provoking for us.
It's probably, again, I know we touched on this earlier on with COVID and things, but actually that aside, that the self-analysis is probably quite a learning curve on its own. Whether you decided to do it or not, just the actual, what would this bring and what would this add and what are we lacking, which this could fill the gaps of, that's probably quite a big learning curve on its own.
But it's definitely the best place to start, right? Which is like, it's going to, bringing on an investor is going to change a few different things. When you're used to it being your own baby and you're making the decision making, you're also now you're going to bring somebody in with some level of accountability to them as a shareholder. How involved they're going to be, that's a personal relationship conversation, isn't it? So I think it'll be really hands-on and breathing down your neck, and you're not used to anyone breathing down your neck, are you? So it's like, that's going to be something to get used to. Also, are they bringing like smart money? So have they got like a network of people and skills and stuff? Yeah, I've always thought, when I've personally thought about that subject, I've always started with the thought of how comfortable am I in the feeling of diluting some of the shares, do you know what I mean? And the responsibility. And I guess that's maybe I am if the money's going to help me push to the next level. But I definitely think there's a thought process around how comfortable I am as an individual.
I think,
agreed. Yeah.
I was going to say, you've got to bring it back to happiness, really, because that's what you're doing it for. And do it for the money. Money's not real, doesn't it? But it is about that. I mean, again, it's, I know that everyone says, well, it's better to have 50% of a much bigger pie than 100% of a crumb on the table sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
that's not necessarily true, is it? For happiness is my point.
It's about happiness. If you've suddenly got, a board of directors that you're now accountable to, every month you're then, having to work weekends to do reports and whatever else, all of these kind of things. So actually you can end up bringing yourself a lot of effort, a lot of hassle. Yes, you'll be going on bigger holidays, you'll have a bigger car, you'll have a bigger driveway, you'll have bigger school fees, but it's happiness is what's important. And, but at the same point, again, with the investor, if they're going to suddenly take some of the load off of you on the business, then that could also. So, I mean, I guess where I would say is, first of all, you need to understand why they want to invest. What are they looking for long term? So, is it just, I want to put the money in and grow the business? I want to sit there and I want to watch the business grow and, and they may get some money out as you go along or, so what's their long-term goal? Do they want, and this is where it depends on who your investor is. Is it an individual that has, made money in the past? Is it an individual that was given money, in which case they're probably going to have itchy feet and they'll want to change things just for the sake of changing them? But that's why it's really making sure that your long-term goals align. Again, you can put agreements in place where it says, when we hit this amount, they either put more money in or take money out and their percentage reduces. Is the goal that within 5 years you'll float it? Is the goal within 5 years you'll sell it to someone else? In which case then if you want to build the business to sell it, you can then, it's very easy because you go, right, with this amount of money, we'll build it in the way that the person we're going to sell it to will want to buy it for the most value. So that's actually a really easy thing. And if that's the goal, I would say investment is a good thing to go with, because you're both, when I say both, it's you and you could bring in 3 investors. You could bring in 1 bank. You could bring in 1 finance house. It doesn't matter who. The important thing is that end long term is aligned. And if it's not aligned, because often it's, just give us the money, you'll go to 3 people, whoever gives you the most money for the least equity share or whatever it is. But, as you've all said, actually, it's who do they know? If suddenly they open up doors to, people with 6 fingers and big bank accounts, then you're going to sell more rings, aren't you? So it really is. It's kind of, there's loads of different things, but I'd always start with, what do you want? What do you want out of life? If you want to be happy, don't grow a business. Do you know what I mean? Because genuinely, from it's the old adage, isn't it? People work, grow this huge business, just to kind of get back to where they were.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking earlier, you know, Gemma's, you know, you grew up in Emsworth, which is an amazing place. It's absolutely lovely. You know, you could almost break your back for 50 years working as hard as you possibly can just to move back to where you came from.
Yeah.
So you'd almost go, well, I just wasted 50 years. But this is the thing, and there's not a right or a wrong answer. But
So,
it's.
I was going to say, on a very small scale, so I don't know why I said co-founder at the beginning. I founded the business on my own, but I was very fortunate to come across some brilliant people who ended up working with me on an associate level. And Sarah and Heidi have become my business partners. They invested into the business, and it's the best thing I could have ever done. Yes, my share portions are smaller, but I couldn't think of two better people who I'd rather go on the journey with, and share that responsibility, share that joy, share the hard times, the bad times and everything. And, you know, for me, that investment is a bit like a marriage. You know, I've got two work wives, and it's brilliant, and I wouldn't change it at all. Yes, you know, sometimes we have different opinions, but we work through it. And with that, we've created the skill set whereby we will, and we have grown the business year on year very, very successfully. And I know with having those people alongside me, we'll continue to do that. Whether or not we bring someone else into that in the future, who knows? We're open to that. And whether or not we'll get a bigger piece of equity into it, I think we'll cross that bridge at the moment. But back to your point, is you've got to be happy doing what you're doing, because otherwise it's really not worth it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've partnered with people in the past, and they have, whether it's a different work ethic, whether it's, you know, them wanting to suddenly go, oh, look, you know, we're making a bit of money now. Well, I'm going to work 1 day a week, and, you know, things like that. So, you know, it really is. It's just be careful. Because if you're really, really happy at the moment, but you're almost frustrated because you want, you know, to get over that next hill or mountain or whatever it is, then potentially what you're really after is the money side. So that would maybe be a case of just going out and asking for money from someone, whether it's straightforward loan or whether it's more of a, you know, right, we get to this bit and then you have to, you know, certain points are hit. So, you know, you take the money, you don't have to pay anything back until X, Y, and Z. But again, there's so many different places, especially with crowdfunding and things like that. There is, to get money now, the options are almost endless. But it's just making sure that you're very comfortable, and it's not going to change the business for the negative. You know, if at the moment, you know, you drive up and you've got your own parking space, and then that will change, then, you know, you might go, well, actually, that's because again, comes back to happiness. You know, for 5 minutes every day, you're less happy because you've now got to park around the corner. So every day, for God's sake, I've got to bloody walk around. You know,
this has got to make you better, hasn't it? It's got to improve your life.
It's got to improve your life.
What it comes down to is what your own goals are, doesn't it, really?
Do you know, out of interest, do you know them?
Well, yes, I mean, I do, but
But how much are you willing to pay for the goals? That's the thing, isn't it? Everyone wants the big yacht, but are you willing to?
I think you're. I don't think it's necessarily materialistic goals. That's not my driver at all. Yeah. I would like to see the business realise its potential. That's what I would like to do. We've got an excellent foundation. We design, we manufacture. We've got all the facilities that a big manufacturer would have, but we've got it in-house. And that enables us to create absolutely incredible quality. But to grow a jewellery business, it ain't cheap buying diamonds. Right? So it's for me, the goal is ensuring the business realises its potential, and everybody who's worked so hard in the business to get it to where it is also gets to realise the fruits of their labour, and it can flourish. So yeah, it's and if a big yacht comes as well, well, that's secondary. But that's not my drive.
But maybe then it could be that you look for a part-time finance director, and it's their job to. Because as I say, if it's just a cash gap, then I don't know, factoring, or there's loads of different ways you can do it. So it might be that you can literally get a part-time FD that's going to work in the business. One day a week, one day a month, whatever it is, but it might be, and their sole project is to get the finance that's right for the business. And that's the thing, because money comes in all different shapes and forms, and it's about making sure that it's right, but it could just be that.
Might be you investing in other businesses for growth in a different way.
True.
Plenty of food for thought.
Too much.
We've got it recorded so you can listen back to it. Right, moving on to our very last question then, Gemma. Over to you, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I have a 11-year-old boy who is absolutely rugby mad, and it wasn't good enough to be just a England mascot the other weekend for the England-Italy game. The best day of his life was when he steps out there playing for England. So, I mean, no pressure on mum and dad at all. But so as part of that, he loves reading books around rugby. And I was really captured by a quote from Dan Carter, who is probably renowned to be one of the world's best number 10s ever for New Zealand. I personally think Johnny Wilkinson's better, but I mean, anyway. So anyway, the quote was that failure isn't the opposite of success. Failure is a necessity to success. And I like that. I really, really like that. And so my question really is, what's been your best failure?
Good question. I like it. I'll kick us off quickly because I was thinking about this. So when I came out of university, which I kind of scraped a degree, I thought, right, I've got to get, what job do I want? I thought I wanted to be a stockbroker, okay? So really overthinking about the glitz and the glamour and the money. And I was like, well, definitely my CV isn't going to get me a top stockbroking job. So I made a plan where I made a list of like 30 firms across the South Coast. And I thought, right, I'm going to drive up and just walk in and knock on the door and ask to speak to the managing director. So I walked into, obviously I walked into like 30 of them, and the 30th one was a company called Farley and Thompson. I say 30, I don't actually know the number, but it felt like that, right? So I walk into Farley and Thompson, I say, look, I'm looking for a stockbroking job. They're like, oh, actually, Josh, we've got a trainee job, it's £16,000. We need a 2-page handwritten letter. I was like, this is perfect. I've been hustling, I found it. Wrote this 2-page handwritten letter. Got an interview, went to the interview, and in the first paragraph, I wrote, I could be anything in my life, I can be an astronaut, I can be something. And the first thing they said to me was, do you realise you spelled astronaut wrong? And I was like, no, I didn't. But so safe to say, the interview didn't go too well, and I didn't get the job. But that serendipity of that led me to go say to myself, I'm not going to let anyone tell me what I can and can't do ever again. I'm going to set up my own company. So although it was a really big failure at the time, like in terms of my studying and trying to find a job that I wanted, I kind of look back on it and be like, it was one of the greatest things that kind of led my life in a very different direction.
I like that.
Yeah, so that's probably a failure that really, really helped me lead me to this point on this podcast with you. Very intellectual and inspiring people. So yeah, I'm really grateful that Farley and Thompson didn't give me that role. Yeah. And also I know how to spell astronaut now. So, that's the benefit of that.
How do you spell astronaut?
Giles, yeah, no. Really put me on the spot. I don't actually know. I don't think you need to know. You got word right? Grammar.
AI, quick, chuck in AI and say ChatGPT. Okay, your viewings are going to rock it.
As we're into the spelling of astronaut, they also said to me, right, go away and check what you actually wrote, which I did. So I guess, so what does it mean? I'm going to have to say now, aren't I? So I went in the Urban Dictionary, the way that I spelt it meant somebody who puts a condom on their head. That's what I wrote in my...
I always remember at school we had the similar
So,
thing.
you know, I've gone in for this job, I've really like hustled to get it. In the first 2-page written letter, the first thing is astronaut. They've obviously been like, Josh, you spelled that wrong. Go and check what you actually wrote. That's what I actually wrote. So safe to say I didn't get the job, but you know, I'm lucky now that I'm grateful that I can't spell particularly well because that led me to this point.
I think it's just more about them that they realise that was the alternative meaning.
Yeah.
I remember when I was at school, for about 30 seconds, I thought, oh, I'd quite like the legal thing and being a solicitor. So I wrote, I'd like to be in solicitation when I'm older. and soon learned what that meant. So
I flew into Texas and I got stopped at customs and they were searching me and they weren't particularly nice, if I'm honest. And they said, "Madam, what do you do?" I said, "I'm a solicitor." And "Madam, what do you solicit?" I'm like, "The law!
Right, let's go around the table then. Chris, failure.
What's your best failure?
Yeah, what's your best failure?
My best failure was probably the way I started the business. So 17 years ago, it was a home visit business where we would go and attend a wedding fair every Sunday, make appointments to go and see people in their homes and sell them wedding rings in their homes. And on the face of it, that was good. We grew from me in the spare bedroom to 24 sales reps within 2 years. We were selling nearly £1 million worth of wedding rings a year. And I look back now and it evolved into having a shop and it's evolved to where we are now and it was, you know, and having our own workshop, etc. But had that not have evolved, that would have been a catastrophic failure. Because there are so many flaws to that business plan. We were spending £130,000 a year just on doing wedding fairs. And you were reliant upon a bunch of people who were self-employed, who were, most of them doing it as a second job, didn't rely on it for their mortgage or anything like that at all. So the number of people every week who would either turn up to their wedding fair with a hangover or if they turn up at all, you're reliant upon the honesty of people all over the country who you didn't really know. So the amount of stuff that got stolen and things was just unbelievable. And if I took that business model in isolation, that was a failure. The positive out of it is that I used that business model to move on to where we are now. But I definitely wouldn't be where I am now had I have not gone through that experience. And that was stressful. I mean, I was 50,000 miles a year I was driving. And as I said, you were let down left, right, and centre. But that failure led to what I currently do.
Thanks, Chris. Kaz?
Mine is more of a bit of a personal failure, but within business. Basically, running myself to the ground. It sounds ridiculous, but when I have that switch of going from employed to self-employed and running a business, I thought I had to be here, there, and everywhere. I was literally working ridiculous hours, saying yes to everyone, and I quickly learned that I was going to either burn out very, very quickly, which I pretty much did, and then it made me look at time management more and have the structure, like Giles, you were saying, you like structure in your kind of life and stuff. It's exactly the same thing, that I needed that within the business, rather than just saying yes and trying to please everyone when really I can do that, but then I'm not helping myself in any way. So yeah, that's probably my biggest failure, but has set me up for the future to never be like that again.
Nice. Final thought, Giles?
Yeah, best failure. I mean, God, there's been thousands of them, I tell you. I reckon my biggest learning curve, shall we say, was probably going back, I don't know, 15 or so years ago when we were very heavily in the mobile phone and sort of telecom side. And I remember we had a chain of stores, we were doing very well. And then suddenly, within about 3 or 4 months, all of the mobile networks just changed tact. And you could tell that they had all sort of sat down and said, we don't want independent dealers anymore. And the way that the industry works is, let's say a person comes in, they sign up to a contract, 30 quid a month, 50 quid a month. You get paid commission, say £200. The cost of the phone is say 150. So you make £50. So, and we were doing hundreds of connections and upgrades and stuff like that, all going really well. And then suddenly the mobile phone networks literally slashed commissions overnight. The commissions never changed. They just never changed. We didn't even know what day of the month they were going to, but yeah, suddenly, and they all did it. They all did it. There's about 5 big networks in the UK, and they all just, so you went from making £50 to losing £50. And of course, the way that the networks did it is they can't just cancel your contract because, of course, that's illegal. So all they did was they could offer the phones to people for free, whereas if we did that phone, we'd lose 50 quid. So we would have to obviously charge for the handsets. So that's effectively how they. But what it taught me was never build a business on someone else's blocks, and that's what the business was built on. We relied on that industry as the mobile networks. Whereas if we had owned something, if we had owned the minutes, bought, something like that, it would have maybe been different. So now...
Do you know what? Someone said that to me last night, actually. Like, don't build your castle in someone else's garden.
100%. And this, tell you what, I see all the time on, and again, no offence to them, I'm sure they're all very honest, but I see all the time on YouTube and whatever else, all these companies offering people other stuff, and all these people are going and spending all their time and effort building their business on someone else's blocks. And you see all these, reseller schemes for companies. You see Amazon have just cancelled their charity, Smile or Shine or something it was called. They've just cancelled that. And I know people that have got businesses off the back of that. So literally, in them making a decision in the boardroom, those people who have probably worked for years and years, hours and hours, building businesses, gone in an instant. And there's nothing they can do about it. So that's why, whenever I look at, buying other businesses or, it's how much control are you actually in? Again, with the, customer service side of things, if you're reselling a product for someone else and that company's warranties are terrible, you get the brunt of it. Because, for example, if you're selling to the end user says, look, there's an issue with this product, you say, yep, no problem at all, I'll get that replaced for you. You then take it back to the manufacturer. The manufacturer then takes however long to do it, they don't fix it properly, whatever, you get the flack for someone else's. So it's all about looking at the ecosystem that you're in and how much control have you got. So when you look that customer in the eye, you can look them in the eye and say, issues do come up in business, don't they, all the time. But as long as you can look them in the eye and say, I will sort this, or I'll make sure this is dealt with, and you actually can.
That exact scenario you've just described there is the whole reason why we manufacture our own jewellery. I got fed up with my suppliers letting me down, making promises they couldn't keep, the quality not being there, and we have a 0 return rate now. We never have a problem because we make it and we make sure it's perfect, and that was the whole reason for it.
That's it, and it is so, much about that. It's how much control you've got, and if you're going to build a business, build it with those in mind, rather than, as I say, building it on someone else's business. They then change tact. Let's say utility companies, at one point you could all resell for all of them. Now only a few of them do it, but when they change tact, you think the ripple effect of their decision on everyone else is huge. So it's, if you're going to spend, you've only got a limited amount of time on this earth, spend the time building something that you can be proud of and that you've got control over.
And integrity.
100%.
That's a real crossover with the investing side and the capital as well, that like just making sure that, a bit like handing over to an investor, you're saying exactly that, keep your happiness with it rather than handing it over to somebody who's
if that investor says, I want more, I want to make 50%, 60%, 70%, and suddenly you're going, oh my God, and you just, all they're doing is rinsing the hell out of the business before they can just discard it and move on to the next, and it's that.
It's a very unlawyer-like thing to say, but because we love things which are very objective and everything. However, I would say that my worst failures have been when I haven't followed my gut. And actually, I think, if you follow your gut and your instinct by applying, good judgment and reviewing the situation, even if you make a mistake, at least you're in a better position to move forward after that.
Nice. All right, ladies, I think let's end on that. Thank you. Right, first of all, Giles, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Gemma, likewise. Kaz, Chris, you've been fantastic. Thank you for listening. Look forward to doing this all over again very soon. That's a wrap.
Thanks.
Cool.